There are a few myths about narcissism that I wish I had known sooner because they absolutely would have changed my life. And that's why I wanted to share them with you today, because I know that this information can really be life-changing. Let's get to it. Welcome to the Common Ego community. My name is Christina. On this channel, we talk about emotional abuse, spirituality, and self-development. Today, we're talking about 5 myths about narcissism that do not always apply, but sometimes are presented as if they are absolute facts in every case. So the reason why I want to share these particular myths is because these myths are exactly what kept me from understanding what I was dealing with for so long. And honestly, buying into these myths kept me in this relationship for probably about 3 years longer than I would have stayed if I had known. Because this was about the time when I started researching what's going on. What does it mean when somebody has no empathy? Because I had no idea, to be honest with you. The only thing I knew was that sociopaths lacked empathy, and so did psychopaths. And in a search, narcissism was something that always came up. But let me tell you, it never seemed to apply. Why? Because the information on narcissism that was out there at the time was all about the grandiose narcissist. It's about the stereotypical narcissist who can't get enough of looking at themselves in the mirror. So these 5 myths may apply to the grandiose narcissist, but if you're dealing with a covert narcissist and you make the mistake, like I did, of believing that these are absolutes, that these are always the case for narcissists, any type of narcissist, then they could end up keeping you in a situation longer than you'd be in it otherwise, as was the case with me. So the first myth about narcissism is that narcissists always have high self-esteem. That is one of the defining characteristics of narcissism. And while this is true for the grandiose narcissist, you're always going to see that self-importance come through. It's not always the case, especially with a vulnerable narcissist or a covert narcissist. Now, this is someone who actually goes back and forth. They have a positive self-image, but that positive self-image can easily come crashing down because this is a person who's also hypersensitive. So this person is not always going to come across as the most confident person in the room. Now, with a covert narcissist, like I said, you're going to see that they're going to be hypersensitive. They also may be introverted or shy. This person is going to be vulnerable to depression, and they're avoidant personalities. So you might see this person avoiding conflict, and they're also prone to aggression. And because of their avoidant personality, it is usually passive aggression. Now, when we get to the 5th myth, we're going to dig into this a little bit more, and we're going to talk about the conflict that's going on within the covert narcissist, because there is that grandiose self-image. It's in there somewhere, but they're also prone to low self-esteem, which sounds like 2 opposing forces, and it very much is. But like I said, we're going to get to that in number 5. So another myth about a narcissist is that they are always boastful and proud. So if you see somebody who is a narcissist, you might think that they would be easy to spot because they're always bragging on themselves. And you may know people like this, and they may in fact be narcissists. But again, that's not always true for the covert narcissist. This type, the vulnerable narcissist, can appear humble and even at times shy. Third myth about a narcissist is that they are never going to help anyone else but themselves. Now, this is something that it's kind of true, because really when they're helping other people, they're really trying to make themselves look better. So it really is all about themselves and all about their own self-image. But there is a narcissist that's referred to as the communal narcissist, who will go out of their way, go above and beyond to help other people. But really they're doing it for the recognition, and that becomes obvious. Now, of course, it feels good for everyone to get recognition for their good deeds. But the communal narcissist, who you will notice often overlaps with the covert or vulnerable narcissist, is is going to start bragging around their good deeds for others. This is one time where you will see them bragging. They may appear very prideful about their good deeds, and it kind of comes across to them and to others that they're just really helpful people, and that these are the kinds of people who would do anything for anyone. They would give you the shirt off their back. But not to be confused with someone who's actually doing it because they are highly empathetic. The covert or communal narcissist will do it for the recognition, and it will be completely obvious. Even if it's not obvious at first, if you spend enough time around this person, you will notice that they need the recognition, that they will only do things if they can get it. So the fourth myth about narcissism that does not apply to the covert narcissist is that they are always social butterflies. This was the most damaging one for me. So when I started learning about narcissism, when I was researching, what kind of person lacks empathy or what could cause someone to severely lack empathy, like I said, narcissism was something that did come up, but it always seemed to come up, at least at that time, with the description of someone who was a social butterfly or someone who was always the life of the party, the kind of person that people just really wanted to be around. Magnetic, I guess, is a good word too. But not only did this not apply at all to the person I was dealing with, and that's not necessarily a bad thing or a knock against anyone, because there are some people who are just more naturally magnetic and naturally outgoing and social, and some people who aren't. But what I found with this particular person was that the personality was sometimes a little off-putting for other people. The truth of the matter was that the description that seemed to be an absolute about narcissism wasn't. It just didn't fit. So there was no way that I could attribute narcissism to what I was seeing. And now we've made it to the last myth about narcissism that can be pretty damaging. And this is that narcissists never feel shame. Now, this is one of the most distinct differences between the grandiose and the covert narcissist or vulnerable narcissist. It's the shame component. And this is very much an internal conflict that goes on within the person, because they do have a high sense of importance, of self-importance. But that self-importance can be easily shattered because they're also hypersensitive. So basically, when they're getting the positive feedback from the world around them, when everybody is saying how great they are, how they do such great deeds, they're just all around a good person who could do no wrong, they're flying high. And that sense of self-importance is at an all-time high. Whenever they receive any sort of criticism, even if it's a gentle criticism, this person is hypersensitive, and so it's going to send that whole facade crashing down. And it's because the vulnerable narcissist is very prone to feelings of shame. And this often is what causes them to reach out or exhibit passive-aggressive behavior. It wasn't until I realized that these were all myths, not absolutes, about narcissism, that I realized that all of the nonsense that I was dealing with in my own life may be something pathological that was not going to go away. And once I kind of made that connection, it became pretty clear that it wasn't going to go away. It's kind of like that piece of it, that component, allowed me to finally see things for what they were. Because when you're in the same repeating patterns over and over and over again, and you feel like you're banging your head up against a wall and nothing is changing, even if the other person is saying that things are going to change and things are going to be different, when you realize that you've been in that place for so long, it becomes pretty clear that things aren't going to change. But you hold on to hope, and you can hold on to hope forever. For literally ever, and just stay in that situation and continually hope that things are going to improve, even though all the evidence that you have is to the contrary. And that's essentially where I was. I was in that cycle, on that emotional roller coaster, just going and going and going. And once I learned about, one, the trauma bond, and two, covert narcissism, I had no idea it was a thing. I felt like I could finally feel my own feelings without blaming myself. And I also felt like I could see things finally for what they really were. And the important part about that, the important part about seeing things for what they really were, is that they weren't going to change. And if I really wanted to change my life, if I wanted to get out of this broken, toxic cycle, then I had to be the one to do it, that I had to be the one to change it. So if you're in this situation right now, if you're in this place, I have a couple of videos about covert narcissism and what it looks like when you're in a relationship with someone who is a covert narcissist. So it's kind of how these characteristics play out in everyday life. So those videos can really help you, and I'm going to link to one of them right here. So you can go ahead and get started in learning more about covert narcissism. Again, these are things that really I wish I had known at least 3 years earlier. So if you found this video helpful, please go ahead and hit that like button. And if you'd like to see more videos like this one, be sure you're subscribed, and I'll see you next time.